Okay, so the job interview, yay! So first off, I want you to take a few minutes, congratulate yourself because you got the job interview. What that actually means is that you had an effective resume, and it was so effective that the employer wants, excuse me, to get to know you better. And that is what the resume is intended to do. So the truth is you take a couple seconds, congratulate yourself that you got the job interview, but now it's time to realize that the work is going to begin. Okay? When we're actually going through this workshop, you're going to know how to prepare for the interview. You're going to know about the various different types of interviews. You're going to know how to communicate your best image at the interview. You're going to know how to answer some of the key questions that are typically at most interviews. You're also going to know how to handle some of the difficult questions and know how to apply what we call the STAR method. So I'm going to teach you exactly what the STAR method is. And then you're going to know the post-interview steps. So what do you do after the interview, if anything? Okay, so we're going to go through that as well. So first off, let's talk just a little bit about some of the types of interviews and interview preparation that it is going to take for you to have a successful interview to end up getting hired. Okay, so the first one is I want you to research the employer. So when I was interviewing, the nonprofit that I worked for previous to this job was very well known. And what ended up happening was I was interviewing a gentleman one time, and he said to me, "What do you do here?" Now, I want to encourage you to do a little bit of research. It's not like you need to spend days and days, but goodness, if you are going into interview for a position, I certainly want you to know a little bit about the company. Okay. I also recommend that you maybe look at their mission statement. I remember one time when I was interviewing, they said to me, "Why do you want to work here?" And I said, "Because I believe strongly in your mission statement." And so I quoted that back to them. The interviewer said to me, "Wow, I didn't even know that was our mission statement." Well, I ended up getting the job. So you do want to do some research. Another thing that you want to make sure is that you know the terms of the skills that they're using, and then you're going to use those same terms of skills at the interview. So if they are calling the position customer service, then you're going to use customer service. If they're calling the position customer representative, then you would want to use the word representative, okay? It's also very, very important before you're going into that interview to check your attitude. And we're going to talk a little more about that in regards to some people. When I would interview them, I could tell through their attitude that they had struggles or troubles at the previous job, um, basically by what they were telling me at the new job. And I'm going to talk to you a little more about that and break that down. If you ended up getting fired or you hated your boss or your boss hated you, how do you address that question? Why did you leave your last job? So we're going to break that down for you too. And then last is to make sure that you look good. Okay. I know you've all heard that saying that first impressions only happen once. Okay, it really is true. You want to make your best first impression. And in addition, we used to have it so that I would teach in this workshop that when you would meet the person who's interviewing you, to give them a good firm handshake. Okay, we can't do that anymore. Um, so what I recommend is that you get a hold of the career force. If you're doing your very first virtual interview, we would be more than happy to do what we call a mock interview or practice interview with you. What we also do is we would have you wear the clothes you're going to wear to the interview, and I can give you some feedback on that. If you notice behind me, I have a bunch of horses. Okay. If I were to interview, I would not have this background because it can be very distracting. I leave it this way in case you get bored of listening to me. You can at least look at the background for a little bit and then come back into the workshop, right? But my point is that you want to make sure that they're focusing on you. Um, you can tell that when I look this way, I have two screens, so that's why I'm doing that. But when I'm looking this way, it's actually disrespectful to you because I'm not giving you eye contact. I certainly don't mean it to be disrespectful. I'm using it as an example where it's important for you to carry on eye contact with the computer, even though it is a computer and you're not looking into someone's eyes. They are seeing you looking at them, and that's the way that you want it. Okay. Now, different types of interviews. Okay, so originally it's easy to think I am going to interview and it's just going to be you and me. Okay. It used to be that way, maybe, where it was only one person that's interviewing you, but things have drastically changed and evolved through the years. So there are many different types of interviews. One of them could be a telephone screening. Now, I want to point out to you that when the phone rings and you see that it might be a person calling you in for the interview, okay, you might recognize the phone number on your phone. What I have found is Murphy's Law comes into play. So when that phone is ringing, I have the children in the background are yelling and screaming. My dog is barking. Okay. All kinds of different things are happening. It's crazy how that works, right? But what I want you to do is when you see that number come up, if you have all that chaos going in the background, let it go into voicemail. Please make sure you have decent voicemail. Okay, I've called people before and they had very inappropriate voicemail, and that ended the interview right there. I never even spoke to them in person. Okay, so you want to have appropriate voicemail. If you've got the family and chaos in the background, you'll let it go into voicemail. Then you're going to go into a private room, tell the family, look, this is a possible interview here. Please be quiet. Please let me make this phone call. And then make sure you have a pen and a piece of paper, because you're going to be getting directions about the interview. So they're going to get into more detail how the interview is going to go, meaning, is it going to be just you and that person, or is it going to be a panel interview, we call it, where you're actually have like 10 people who are interviewing you. But anyways, you want to write down all that information, because what I found was that if I was really excited about the job, I'd be nervous too, just talking to him even on the phone. But know that that is part of the interview. So as soon as that phone is ringing, the interview has begun. Okay. There, of course, is the in-person screening, which we're seeing that less and less all the time now due to the pandemic. We're finally getting into where you actually, we can have some human contact, right? But the in-person screening is getting less. There is the selection type of interview, where actually that is where they're going to take your skills and see how well they match up with the actual job itself. So selection could be um, where they're actually talking with you about your skills, and they're actually trying to eliminate candidates based on the criteria. So for the selection, it could be where they're actually trying to figure out, okay, so are you going to be a good fit here, and do we want to take this a step further and interview you? Or maybe you've gotten a job, maybe you've changed your mind, okay? But the goal is to select the best candidate that will meet the needs within the decision maker, okay? There's also the behavioral interview. Behavioral interview will provide more information for the job, but the big key is they want to know how are you going to act or behave on the job. Okay, so there's many different types of positions out there and many different types of stress levels. Now, some of them, depending on the position, the employer wants to know, how are you going to handle this? This is a stressful position. Are you going to fly off the handle, or are you going to be able to do the job, okay, and do it well? Another interview is the work sample. So work sample is getting more and more common. I'll give you an example. So I have worked with a welder in the past, and when he went in for his interview, he had to do a work sample. When he did that work sample, after he did the weld, then they would take that over to x-ray, see if there were any bubbles in it. They'd x-ray the weld, and then they would put a stress on the actual weld and see if it would hold or not. Okay, so that is a work sample. That's checking to see that you know how to do what you say you know how to do, okay? And then last is the group or the peer group. This is where you're more than likely going to have more than one person interviewing you, okay? Now, it's very, very important to pay attention when you walk into that interview room to people's names. Now, here's what I found. If I really want that job and I'm really nervous, It's hard for me to even remember my name, let alone everybody else's name who's around the table. Especially, goodness, if you've got 10 people interviewing you, okay? This stuff really can happen. So what I recommend that you do is that you ask them for their business cards before you leave that interview, okay? If they introduce themselves to you as Mrs. Johnson, you refer to them as Mrs. Johnson. If they introduce themselves to you using their first name, then you can use their first name, okay? So that's kind of like the proper protocol of addressing someone. And then also when you're addressing them as you send the thank you note, which we'll get into some more details as we go along here, okay? You want to make sure that you communicate your best image, of course. So you want to send good signals. You want to be able to have what we call show and tell, so that you're going to be able to show me how you handled a difficult situation on the job, and then you're going to tell me about it, okay? We're going to make sure that you finish strong, and I'm going to explain to you exactly what that means, and then what do you do after the interview, okay? I'm going to teach you about the follow-up. And this follow-up piece is also so important. A lot of times it could be the decision maker, where if you send a thank you note, they might be deciding between you and someone else. The other person didn't send the thank you note, but because you did, I'm going to give you the job, okay? Because you took it that one step further. When you are going to the interview, I want you to plan to arrive 15 minutes early. Please do not show up a half hour early, okay? That's just creepy. But I want you to be there at least 15 minutes early. And I want you to, in your mind, have some type of conversation that you're going to have with the person who is sitting in the room while you're waiting before the interview. So I call that person the gatekeeper, okay? The reason I call them the gatekeeper is because it's just kind of my point of reference so that you know who I'm talking about. This is the person who is probably at the reception desk, and you walk in and say, "Hi, my name is Glory Mitchell, and I am here for the 9 o'clock interview." Okay, what they'll do is they'll say, "Okay, I will let Mrs. Johnson know that you're here. Go ahead and have a chair. Would you like, any water or anything?" Okay, that's the person that you want to be able to have small chat conversation with, okay? You could talk about the weather. You could talk about sports. You could talk about fishing. You could talk about something that you're hoping the other person isn't interested in, but please present a very nice um, first impression of yourself to this person. And here's why. When I would interview people, Miss Jackie was my gatekeeper, and after the interview, I would go and talk with Miss Jackie about how you were behaving in the room before I actually got you in for the interview. Now, this is a true story. I had interviewed a gentleman, and as far as I was concerned, I was going to hire him. He interviewed very well, and he was exactly what we were looking for. So I walked him out, shook his hand, told him thank you, and told him I would be in touch and I would get back to him, in a couple days. Um, Turned and asked Miss Jackie, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Oh my goodness, you're going to hire him, aren't you?" And she had kind of this look of horror on her face. And I said, "No, not necessarily." I said, "I want to hear your opinion too." So Miss Jackie told me, she said, "Well, first off, he came in and he was rude. Um, he answered the phone while he was talking with me. Now, first off, keep your phone in the car. Okay, even if you have it turned on silent or vibrate, vibrate can be very loud when you're at an interview, even though it doesn't sound loud typically or normally, it does when you're in an interview. Okay, your cell phone does not belong at the interview, so leave it in the car." And then when he answered the phone, he swore at whoever was on the other end and said, "I'll call you later. I'm in an interview." And he was referring to this person on the other end as his girlfriend, okay? And he called her name. Due to that, I did not hire him, okay? Because that's telltailing to me. How I perceive that was that, okay, so if he's calling his loved one that name, what is he going to do with us if he has to do something he doesn't like? And we all have roles on our positions, on our jobs, on the job site that we have to do stuff we don't always like, but it's part of the job, right? So, needless to say, he did not get the job just based on that. Okay. I love this scenario. So we call this scenario the sandwich method. And the reason that we do is because it is giving you kind of a visual on how to handle some of these tough questions out there. and you're going to have some tough questions. So for instance, let me give you an example. Why did you leave your last job? Okay, let's pretend that you got fired. Okay, let's pretend that the boss hated you for whatever reason, wasn't right. Um, it was probably even very, very unfair that this happened to you. Do you talk about that at the interview when they say, why did you leave your last job? The answer is no, you do not talk about it that way. Now, let me tell you why. The companies that I work with and I go out and advocate for you to get a job, I go out and talk with the employers and say, what do you want to hear at the interview? Their number one response is, are you going to fit in here? Glory, when I'm interviewing people, I want to know, are they going to fit in? Are they going to come and get along with the other people, the other great employees I already have in place? Or are they going to come in and I call it upset the apple cart? So Sheila, I would like for people to put in the chat the answer to this, yes or no. Have you ever worked with a difficult person? Okay, so put yes or no, and then in a little bit, Sheila, I'm going to ask you, okay, what the responses were. But let's get back to the sandwich method, and let's say that they asked me, why did you leave your last job? And let's say that I had gotten fired, okay? So why did you leave your last job? I left my last job because of an involuntary separation, okay? Now, you need to practice saying that because that just doesn't flow right off of your tongue, okay? So involuntary separation. When I was working there, I found that over time, it just ended up not being as good of a fit as I thought, and I have decided that I would like to advance my career and come to work with, take the skills that I learned from that position and apply it to this new position, okay? But again, now, do you see how I'm making it a little bit choppy as I'm talking to you? You want to be able to practice this so that it actually flows freely, okay? But the key is to practice. The key is to be prepared for this question so that it doesn't stump you. We want you to be positive and we want you to be honest, but honest doesn't mean that you say everything, okay? You certainly don't lie. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is go in there with the idea that it's on a need to know basis, okay? You know, there were times when I would interview people, I'd be just excited to interview this person because based off their resume, they are very skilled and talented. When I would interview them, the very first question that we would ask is, tell me a little bit about yourself. And they would, and this is a natural human um, concept. The reason that we're asking, tell me about yourself, we're actually taught as interviewers to put zippers on our lips and be quiet and let you answer. Those are called open-ended questions. And what that means is that the answer is not yes or no, but instead, I want you to tell me everything. Okay. I want you to tell me that you have children. I can't ask you it legally. I can't ask you if you're married. I can't ask you your religious preference. I can't ask you your sexual preference. Okay. It's illegal for me to ask you, but if you tell me those things, it's not illegal. Okay. So here's what would happen. I would say, tell me a little bit about yourself. And the person would go into, well, I was born in so and so, and I have been married for this many years, and I have this many children. So my question to you is, what does that have to do with the job? Okay. What I want you to do is when they ask you, tell me about yourself, I want you to give yourself permission to say three things. And three things meaning three skills. Okay. So when someone would say that to me, Glory, you know, thanks for coming in today. Tell me a little bit about yourself. I would first say to them, because I always believe in starting with being thankful. Thank you very much for having me come in to interview for you guys today. I'm really, really excited to be here. If I were to tell you a little something about myself, I would have to say that I'm a woman of my word. I am dependable and I'm punctual. And then leave it at that and let them ask the next question. When I interviewed this one gentleman one time, it was 2 hours later. I said, tell me about yourself. 2 hours later, I knew everything about his whole history. We didn't really get into any of the other questions because it just wasn't a good fit because of all of the information that he gave me. Okay. So, and there were times where I would like, oh man, why do I need to know all this stuff when I'm interviewing? But I wouldn't stop them because it's part of the process, okay? But you need to be aware that the reason they're interviewing you is because they need your help. They want to hire somebody. And with me in the position, if I couldn't hire you, I was doing your position as well as mine. Okay. So I desperately needed your help. So what you want to do is you want to be positive and honest in your answers. Keep it brief, but focus on your skills. Okay. Get it back to your skills as quickly as you can, um, and stay off of the negative as much as you can. Okay. Another wonderful acronym here is our STAR acronym. And the reason we have these in acronyms is so that when you're at that interview, you can think, it will prompt you, oh yeah, that's right, Gloria talked about the STAR acronym, I can use that. So you're going to talk about an situation, you're going to talk about the task, you're going to talk about the action that you took and what was the result. Okay, so you want to provide an example of a situation that you were involved in that had a positive outcome. Okay, you're going to describe the task, get into detail. Well, this is what we ended up doing. How did you do it? Okay, explain the actions that you took to get to your result, and then describe the positive results that came from your actions. Okay. Sheila, I want to stop here for a minute and just see if you have any questions.
No questions have come in,
Okay.
but to your question, have you worked with a difficult person?
Yes.
The overwhelming answer is yes.
Yes. Okay. I wanted to know, did anybody say no?
No, there wasn't any no's in there.
Isn't that amazing? So
Yes.
I want to point this out that, when we do this workshop, I ask this question and I just don't think I have ever had anybody say no. No, I have never worked with a difficult person. Isn't that amazing? That's got to tell us all something, that when we are out on the job, we will work with difficult people. Okay, that's part of it. Um, before you quit that job because you don't enjoy working with somebody who's difficult, would you please reach out to us at the Career Force? Don't sacrifice your job because of somebody else. We have different skills and resources that we can help you to resolve the issue. Okay. Um, Another thing I found too is that oftentimes I would be working with people, they would come in, they're working with this difficult person, and they did the right thing. Okay, so the person I'm working with stayed. They tried to remedy it, tried to make a bad situation better. And because they stayed, it's kind of interesting how the other person either quit or that other person would get transferred. There's a lot of things that will happen. I call it karma. Okay, but please reach out to us and use our resources to help guide you through some of this stuff, because I've had people quit and then they'll come to me and they'll say, Gloria, what do I do now? And my answer is, well, we're just going to have to start over, and have you get a different position. Whereas sometimes you can work it through on the job. And like I say, Sheila and I know how to coach you through that, and we're more than happy to do that. So you'll see here some of these key questions that I was talking to you about. Another service that we provide is that we will do mock interviews. So I want to encourage you to give us a call if you've got an interview coming up and let us practice with you. The thing that is so wonderful about practicing is that it gives you a better expectation. In addition to that, it's also going to give you more confidence. Okay. A lot of times when you are going into an interview, you're nervous. You're kind of like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what they're going to ask me. I don't know what to do here. We know what the employer wants to hear because we ask the employer, what do you want to hear? Okay. So a lot of times when you reach out to us, we can give you some of that inside information that not everybody has, but we have it because we're working close with the employer. Okay. I love the question, why are you interested in working for this company? Okay. I would actually plan for sure they're going to ask you, tell me about yourself and why do you want this job? Okay. Why are you interested in working for this company? Okay. Please have an answer. With the why are you interested in working for this company, what I would say is that I did some research and found out you guys make a really good quality product. And I want to be a part of your team, a part of a company that takes pride in their products. And in addition, I believe I can make you a lot of money and I'll make some money too. Okay. One of the things I found really interesting was that when I would interview people, and obviously we all work for money. That's why we work. Okay. If you love your job, that's a bonus. Okay. But what I would find is that many people who would interview, and I sincerely believe it's just because they didn't know any better, they would come in with the attitude, "What you going to do for me?" Okay. Meaning, what's the pay? Is there benefits? Now, these are all true statements that I sincerely, truly had. Could I borrow $20 from you? I just blew in here on gas. Could I get a gas card? Um, if you hire me, does that mean I can't go to the food shelf anymore? Okay. So do you see what I'm saying by it's a whole different attitude where they are saying, "What you going to do for me?" Okay. Instead, I want you to go in with the attitude that, "Mr. Employer, this is what I can do for you." Okay. And then in turn, you'll get rewarded, okay, by doing the right thing for Mr. Employer. The one reward would be you'll get hired. Okay. So know a little bit about the company and why you are interested in working for them. What is your major weakness? I asked a gentleman that one time and he says, "I don't have any." Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. That is your weakness. Okay, we all have weaknesses. But what I want you to do is use that sandwich method again, where you talk about your weakness, okay, but you're going to turn it back into a positive as quickly as possible. So this is really true about me. And this is really true when I interviewed for this position. They said, "Glory, what is your major weakness?" And I said, "Well, you know what? One of my major weaknesses is Excel. Okay, the program Excel. I am not really crazy about doing spreadsheets, but I want to let you know that I know that they're very important and they're part of our billing. I understand that. So I also want to let you know that I plan on taking a refresher course in Excel before my first day of employment." Okay. Well, I ended up getting hired. They didn't say, "Well, Glory doesn't know Excel, so she can't get the job." Instead, what I hoped that I was presenting was that I'm not perfect. Um, I will learn Excel. I'll teach myself, refresh myself on the program itself, and I'll come to work prepared. I also believe that what I'm telling the employer is that, you know what, I love to learn, I'm flexible, and I'm willing to learn. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything, but I will tell you that I love to learn, and if you're willing to teach me, I will learn it, and I'll get it down and do it the way you want me to do it. Now, I've had a lot of people that I've worked with too who they have said, "That's not the way I was taught." "Oh, no, that's not the way we do it around here." Or, "That ain't in my job description. I'm not going to do that." Okay. Well, I want to challenge you a little bit. As long as it's not illegal, what do you care? Seriously. Okay. You're getting paid to do the job. Do it the way the employer wants you to do it. Okay. At the interview, you have every right to say, "I just want to also let you know that I'm willing to do the job the way you want me to do it. So when you show me how you want a certain thing done, I can guarantee you I will do it that way. And in addition to that, if I have questions along the way, I'm not scared to ask you and I'm not scared to ask for help. If I don't understand exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm going to let you know that." Well, that to the interviewer impresses them because it shows that, okay, uh, you are willing to learn. You're not set in your ways. And even if you are set in your ways, we are all having to change right now, whether we like it or not. And I always say that sometimes change, the only way that a reason that it's happening is because it's forced. So know that the employer is having to make some big changes too, and they want employees who are following along with them. Okay. What are one of your strengths? You guys, when I'm working with you one-on-one, I always find it very interesting. I'll say, "What are some of your skills or are some of your strengths?" You'll say to me stuff like this: "Well, Glory, I can't do this, I can't do that, and I can't do this, and I can't do that." None of them were your strengths, okay? And none of those answers were your skills. No, let me tell you this. We're not used to talking that way. I don't come up to you and introduce myself to you and say, "Hi, my name is Glory Mitchell. And by the way, I'm a really hard worker. I'll do the job the way you want me to do it, and I'll show up on time," and turn around and walk away. You're going to say, "Yeah, you're a Fruit Loop too." Okay. But the truth is that when you are at the interview, that is the time that you are going to talk about your skills. You are going to talk about the great things that you are. You're going to use the term I am and fill in the blank, okay? You're going to use the skills that are off of the job description, the terms that the employer is using, and you're going to say them with confidence. And how you're going to do that is you're going to practice with us at the Career Force, okay? And we're going to help you to gain that confidence. But in addition, that's the way you need to talk at the interview. Okay. You need to tell me what your skills are. You need to tell me how you're going to fit into this place. You need to tell me that you're going to get along well with others. You need to tell me that you believe I can make some money and you'll make some money too. That just makes you rise above everyone else. Okay. You will literally stand out if you go into the interview with this attitude. I also think it's very, very important that you can answer this question. Can you give an example of how you solved a problem? Okay. Now, I want you to make sure again that it stays positive. Okay. I had a gentleman one time that I interviewed, and I thought this was just really, I did hire the guy, by the way. But, anyways, I said, "Give me an example of how you solved a problem." And he said to me, "Well, he said, I was working for this ABC company. We were in manufacturing. They were spending a lot of money on this one tool that wasn't working very good, so I invented a different tool." He said, "But what happened is after I invented that, then the boss went and got it patented and he took all the credit for it." Now that part could have stayed out of the interview, okay? But I'm just saying that you want to be able to have an example in your head. Please don't say, "Well, I have never had a problem on the job." I'm not going to believe you. Okay. None of us are perfect and life doesn't work that way. So I want to know, how are you going to solve a problem when one arises, not if, when one arises. Okay. And the last one, this is so important too. Where do you see yourself in 3 years? They might word it another way. They might say 3 to 5 years, or they might say, "What are your career aspirations?" Here's your answer. I see myself in 3 years working for you, and hopefully I will have gotten a promotion. Now, truth is, do any of us know where we're going to be in 3 years? No, we don't. Okay. I've had people say to me, "Well, 3 years, I'm going to be retired by then." I'm not going to tell them that, Glory. Okay, fine. Good luck on getting the job. If you are close to retirement age, I want you to tell the interviewer that, "Look, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. So I just want to let you know that if you give me the chance to come and work for you, I will be here for many years." Okay. You're not saying, "Well, once I turn 62, I'm out of here. Or once I turn 67, I'm out of here. I'm only working for another 3 years." The employer is leery of that because oftentimes they need to put time and money and training into you starting the new position. And they don't want to do that. They don't want to invest all of that time and energy into the fact that you're going to be leaving them very quickly. Okay. So when you're interviewing, I want you to tell them, "I see myself getting a promotion and I'm still working for you." Okay. I actually asked a person that question one time, and they said to me, "Well, I see myself going down the street and owning a thrift store and competing with you." So did I hire her? No, obviously I didn't. I'm not going to hire you, train you, and know that you're going to go down the street and start to compete with me. Not happening. So your answers, again, are super important with that one. Now, I've had people say to me too, "Well, I'm not going to lie. I know that I'm going to retire at 62." Okay. Um, you're not lying. It's on a need to know basis. Okay. And when I go in an interview, I'm not telling them all of my future plans outside of the work. Okay. Um, Instead, what I'm doing is I want to let them know that I'm going to be a good employee and that I intend on being there for a long time. Okay. Interview practice. I think it's kind of interesting how we still have this picture of a good firm handshake. Who would have ever thought that we would get to a world where we don't know if we can shake somebody's hand or not? So how I want you to handle this is when you're at the interview, if the interviewer walks up to you and says, Glory, good to see you, and they put their hand out to you, then you can give them a firm handshake. Otherwise, you don't do it, okay? So you're going to follow their lead. So that's one of the big things that have changed. Sheila, did you have a question?
Yeah, I thought before we moved on, there was one
Yes.
question in the chat. Someone wants to know what you would recommend to a qualified, competent elderly job seeker who can't compete with younger candidates.
Okay, first off, that is simply not true that you can't compete with younger candidates. The only reason that that might be true in your mind is because you're telling yourself that. Okay. What I want you to do instead is I want you to start to look at the experience and the wisdom that you have. Now, what I say, obviously, I'm not 20 years old. Okay. But I'll tell you what, I paid a high price for the wisdom that I have up to today. And in turn, Mr. Employer can make an awful lot of money off of that. So I want you to go into the interview and even the resume and the job search thought process that I am valuable. I am a really valuable asset because of all the experience I have under my belt. Okay. And that is going to give you a whole different perception when you're interviewing as well. Okay, because you're not thinking that, oh, some young whippersnapper is going to come in here and just take this job away from me. I don't have a chance. It's really interesting when you're telling yourself that that will come out through the interview. Okay, and it's I call it the Freudian slip. Okay, it's where you might say something and you're like, why did I say that? Okay, the important thing is to get the age back out of it. Okay, and start to tell yourself that I'm a valuable asset and that I'm going to bring any company a lot of wonderful things if you just give me a chance. Okay. Sheila, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Now, yeah, and I think the key is, just to make sure you highlight your skills that you have to offer to them. Maybe you have skills that, someone younger hasn't developed yet, and you could sell yourself that way. And along with your proven work history, your work ethic, those are all valuable to an employer.
Yes, thank you, Sheila. She's absolutely right. Okay, now we are going to talk a little bit about your references. Okay, one of the things that I found really interesting when I be interviewing people is if I checked your references. Now, please don't say, yeah, I attended a workshop today and Glory said that they don't usually check our references. No, that's not what I'm saying. You always assume that everyone is going to check your references. Okay, but here's the truth of the matter. If I interviewed with you and our interview went really well and you convinced me that you're the best person for the job, I don't need to call 3 other people to find out how great you are. I know you're great and I'm going to give you a chance. Okay. But again, you always assume that everybody is going to check all of your references. Now let's talk about this for a minute. You only need 3 good references. Okay. Unless the company asks you for more. I've had people who actually have gotten so hung up on their references that it stops them from even completing their resume, let alone applying for the job. Okay. So your references do not go on your resume, they go on page 2. You only need to have 3 good ones. I also want to remind you, if you don't know this or can't remember it, is that if I call your boss, the supervisor, he or she can only tell me the day you started, the day you quit, and would they hire you again? And if they said, no way, I wouldn't hire her again, that doesn't mean I'm not going to hire you. Okay. How do you know that I'm not looking at it like, yes, I am so delighted that ABC Supply didn't realize what a valuable asset you are. And I'm so happy you have come to join our team. Do you see how that's a way different way of looking at it? My point is that you do not know how I'm looking at it. So keep the references, make sure that they talk positive about you, please make sure that you ask permission from them before you use them as a reference. I would call a reference once in a while, and they would say to me, Susie said that she could use me for a reference. I never gave her permission. No, I'm not giving her a reference, and hang up on me. Okay. In regards to your references too, what I want you to do is I want you to give them a copy of your resume, give them a copy of the job that you applied for. And what I would do is I take it even a step further and I'd highlight the skills on the job description so that my reference would know, okay, this is what this company is looking for, and these are the things I can do. Okay. Let me tell you why that's so important. If you can't tell me what your skills are, how in the world do you expect your references to tell me what your skills are? Okay. So you're giving them kind of a heads up. It really helps the reference to be able to talk freely about you too then. So my favorite reference to call would be a work colleague. So let's say that your boss fired you, you guys didn't get along, you're scared to use him for a reference, he or she. Use a work colleague that can verify that you are a great worker. I would rather talk to your work colleague anyways, because again, your supervisor can only give me just this little box of information. I want to talk to someone, if I am calling your references, who can just give me the insides and outs of who you are and how you are to work with. Okay. Another thing that is super, super, super important is to make sure you send a thank you note. Okay. Now, one of the ways that I suggest that you can do this is go to the dollar store. And of course, you can do this however you feel comfortable doing it, but I'm going to give you the example that I do. So I'll go to the dollar store and I get the full size thank you card. Okay. And then it opens up and it says thank you. That's all it says. Okay. It might say thank you on the front of the card too, or you can open it up and it's blank, either one. When I interviewed for this job, I did a panel interview, which there were 8 people that interviewed me, and I wanted this job really bad. So, again, I had a hard time even remembering my name, let alone all these 8 people that just introduced themselves to me. So I asked them for their business cards. So now I've got all their business cards. Remember, I told you earlier in the workshop that if they address themselves to you as Mrs. Johnson, that's what you're going to write in the thank you note as Mrs. Johnson. Okay. Excuse me. Ideally, it'd be great if you can have everybody's name on that thank you card. So you will put dear and then put the name of the person who interviewed you or the names of the interviewees, okay? And then I always wrote, thank you for the opportunity to interview for the state of Minnesota. I really believe that my qualifications fit exactly what you're looking for. I look forward to hearing from you, Glory Mitchell. Then that would be on the body of the thank you card, and on the left side I would have my telephone number and my email address right there, so that way they don't have to look it up, they don't have to try to find my resume again. It's right there. They can call and tell me that I got the job. Okay. So the thing that's really interesting about that is that I talked to many employers, and they've said to me many different times, I couldn't decide between Susie and Sherry, but Susie sent me a thank you card, and so I picked Susie. Even though Sherry was a good fit too, I picked Susie. So do you see how that thank you card can actually, it gets you in front of the employer one more time, but in addition, it can get it to where you can stand out. It is also a very effective way to come to the table one more time and sell yourself, okay? Now, because of the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. So a lot of people don't want stuff that they have to touch, meaning that thank you card, okay? So you're going to have to use your best judgment. And again, you can reach out to Sheila or your local career force, and we can help you with this too. What I did before pandemic was I would have the thank you card all ready to go in my purse, and I would either hand it off to the receptionist or I would put it in the mail right after the interview, because I want to get it to them as quickly as possible, and I want to be in front of them one more time, okay, meaning my name and my phone number and my email address. Excuse me. Now, another way that you can do it is you can email them a thank you. That is perfectly acceptable. But what I would do is I would make sure that each person that emailed me Either you can send them each person that interviewed me, you can send them each an individual thank you, which I think that's the most effective, or you can send them in a group thank you. But the key is to make sure that you send them a thank you. And I love how it says in the bottom, it's the best thing to do. It really is. Like I say, I've just seen it be very, very effective, where a lot of people get a job and they get hired over the other person just because they said that thank you. So that's why it's so important. Okay. Sheila, I want to check in with you and see if you have any questions.
Yes, they're coming in fast and furious now.
Great.
Let me go back up here. When you don't meet all the qualifications for the job, how do you convince the interviewer you are the right person for the job?
Excellent question. So the truth of the matter is that most of us, when we apply for a job, we don't meet every single qualification that they are wanting. But that's when I call it addressing the elephant in the room. I want you to make sure that you say, you know, I don't actually have all the skills that you're looking for, but I want to let you know that the skills that I do have, and go back into naming them, are very strong. In addition, I love to learn. So because I don't have all the skills that you're looking for, the beauty of it is that you can teach me them and I'll do them exactly the way you want me to, because I'm not coming in with a preconceived notion. Instead, I'm coming in and I will do the job exactly the way you want me to do it. So you can actually turn that back into something positive. Okay.
And I think you kind of addressed this already. If things do not end well at your last job, should you include them as a reference? You know, and like you said, it doesn't have to be your supervisor or your boss. You could include a colleague, you know, that could speak well of you.
Yes.
If you want to add anything else to that, Gloria.
No, I think that that's the best. I just have really found that it works both as the interviewer, at being the interviewer and being interviewed.
Right.
Both ways.
And then is it okay to use references from 20 or 30 years ago? Does it seem old to a potential employer that one is not using a more recent place worked as a reference?
That's an excellent question. No, it does. Okay, so if you've been in a job for 20 to 30 years, you have every right to use those people. You've known them for that long. But now here's something I want to caution you on. First off, I want to encourage you to take the workshop, which is entitled Job Search Over 50. I want you to take that workshop because we really break that down into more information in regards to how much do you tell the person at the interview, also how to present your resume in an appropriate way where you're not going to be discriminated due to age. Now, yes, age discrimination is illegal, but it happens all the time. Let's get real, okay? So what we always say is that you don't need to say on your reference page, known these people for over 30 years. Okay, that's going to date you. Okay, so figure that if you've known somebody for over 30 years, I'm thinking you probably started working around 19, 20 years old. How old, just by me figuring that out, I never met you, you're probably at least 50 years old, right? Just by kind of deducting through common sense. So what I want you to always keep in mind is, even when they ask you sometimes when you're applying online or a paper application, it will ask for references and it will say, how long have you known them? I just want you to write the word 10 plus years. So get that embedded in your mind, 10 plus years. Now, because I'm not a 20-year-old, I do not want to be discriminated due to age, okay? So when I'm doing my resume, I'm only going back 10 years. When I'm talking about how long have I known my references, it's 10 plus years, okay? Now, obviously, once I get to the interview, they're going to see that I'm not a 20-year-old, but now I'm a real live person, and they can't just throw me away, okay? And now you're giving me the opportunity to come to the table and tell you why I am the best person for the job, okay? Now, you need to believe you're the best person for the job when you're interviewing as well. So how do you do that? Here's how I did it. I just kept looking in the mirror saying, I am the best person for this job. And my brain would go, no, you're not. Okay. Well, then I'd have to say it again. And I'd say it enough until I actually believed it. And guess what? They did too then. You see how that works?
And this one's just a comment. Someone has been having virtual interviews, and they got the names of the participants from the team's invitation, and then they sent a thank you note virtually because they were working from home.
Excellent way to do it. See, and thank you for
Yes.
bringing that up, because what you're bringing up is just another platform. So you said that you sent it through Teams. Okay, well, that's different than email. So thank you for pointing that out too. The key is to get that thank you to them. So congratulations on doing that.
Mhm. What do you do if you have a peer group interview virtual, but the only follow-up info given is that a recruiter will contact you? How do you send a thank you note then? I've always sent a thank you note, but in my last interview, I had no email contact info, phone numbers. Everyone was working remotely.
Yes, and you know, a lot of that is due to the pandemic, where we do only what you can do. You know, you try to take it as far as you can. If you don't have a way to contact the people who actually interviewed you, you're kind of stuck right there. You can send the recruiter the thank you, but you probably don't even know who the recruiter is. One of the things that we're working on with our employers too is for them to get back to you on whether or not you got the job. Okay. A lot of our employers, from the Duluth area, and a lot of our employers around here are horrible at letting people know if they got the job or not. And they'll just sit and wait and wait and wait and wait. In that situation too, you could always call. Hopefully you would have a phone number, and maybe you don't, but you could always call the person and just say, hi, my name is Gloria Mitchell. I interviewed last week for the customer service position, and I just wanted to check in and see if you made any decisions. Okay, so you can do it that way too. Um, that's kind of an indirect way for getting yourself back in front of the decision maker one more time, like the thank you note is intended to do.
Okay, one more question, which is probably good for timing.
Yeah,
Um, I've read that email thank you notes are appropriate now. Sometimes physical addresses aren't readily available. What are your thoughts?
I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Email thank yous are getting more and more common, and that's, I believe, because of COVID. People don't want to touch things anymore. Okay. Um, the key is to be flexible and to get them the thank you. Okay, however you do it. And again, when in doubt, give Sheila or I a call too. We can walk you through some of that stuff. But the key is to use the platform that you feel most comfortable with. Key is to get them the thank you. Tell them thank you for the interview.
And one thing about the email thank you too, make sure you're still using the appropriate letter format, the greeting, the salutation, the proper grammar, those types of things. So it still looks professional.
Thank you for saying that, Sheila. That is so true too. Goodness, you should see some of the emails that I've gotten in the past from people. And we have spell check. So you shouldn't have any misspelled words. But she's making an excellent point where we need to pay attention to that too. What does that actually look like? Okay. What does your email look like, and keep it professional? So having said that, the time right now is 10:59. So we're on our countdown for the last minute. I wanted to reassure you that you will be receiving an email by tomorrow afternoon with all of the information that we've talked about today. Feel free to watch the recording over and over, because we have given you a lot of information. Feel free to reach out to Sheila or I or your local career force, and we can get you connected on how to get that job, and to get you a gainful, lasting career. So we just want to thank you for joining us today, and blessings. We're here to help you. Thank you.